Hello, Vista residents and the Vista curious. Welcome to the second episode of Vista City Tea, where I take the long and occasionally dry city council meetings and distill them down into a quick, drinkable gulp of local tea. Because let's be honest, most people don't have hours to sit through these council meetings, but you should know what's happening in your city. My name is Chris Rainwaters. I'm a Vista resident, PTA mom, small business owner, and Vista, California's self-proclaimed village witch. And if you live here or you're thinking about living here, this stuff matters because your day-to-day life, that gets decided locally. And that's Chico. He loves to put his 2 cents in. So if you didn't have 3 hours to sit through last night's meeting, don't worry, I did it for you. Now, side note, I am a small outfit and this stuff does take some time to write and edit and put out, which gets done as quickly as possible. But thinking sustainably, this moving forward is gonna be more of a last week tonight type thing, but hyper local, obviously. Although I do think I'm a little bit better to look at than a nerdy British man. His words, not mine. Although we do both wear glasses, and to be honest, I love me some John Oliver, but I digress. If you find this video helpful, give it a like, share it with another Vista neighbor, and subscribe. Because if people actually like and engage with these, I'll keep making them. Plus, I promise these intros will get shorter as my viewership grows. This is just us, getting to know each other a little. All right, so let's get into the tea from March 10th, 2026's Vista City Council meeting. The meeting opened with something really nice. The council recognized Vista Unified Superintendent Dr. Doyle, who was named Administrator of the Year by the Association of California School Administrators. So quick context here, if you don't know Dr. Doyle, he's been an educator for 36 years and has lived in Vista for 31 years. He spoke about the partnership between the city, schools, families, and public safety. And he also highlighted something important. Many Vista students come from poverty, and strong partnerships can help open doors for those students. This moment was mostly ceremonial, but it was a reminder that schools and cities really do work together more than people realize. And if you'd like to dive deeper into our local schools, where they're headed, how funding works, the upcoming bond vote, etc., I created a 3-part series, which I'll link the first for you below, and it'll naturally lead into the other 2, by the end of the YouTube, watch this one in whatever corner that it shows up in. Then there was a conversation about an item that really matters if you own property in Vista. It was around fire safety and vegetation management. Ooh, spicy, I know, but stay with me. There were 2 main things that homeowners and residents should know about. The first is defensible space enforcement. So the city is continuing its program to enforce defensible space requirements around homes. So that means cleaning vegetation, brush, and other fire hazards around structures. If your property is flagged as high risk, you may receive a letter from the city requiring you to address vegetation or fire hazards. This isn't new, but the city made it clear that they are continuing to prioritize it, especially as fire seasons get worse. And honestly, from a homeowner perspective, that's probably not a bad thing, because if a neighborhood burns, everybody loses. And second, they talked about tools residents can use to report fire risks or stay informed. Things like apps that allow residents to report hazardous vegetation, tools to track local wildfire conditions, and ways to communicate with fire authorities about risk areas. So if you see something dangerous, like heavy brush buildup or unsafe conditions, there are ways for residents to flag that. And this is where I'm gonna put on my realtor hat real quick for a second. Deputy Mayor O'Donnell raised something that's a huge issue across California: homeowners insurance. Insurance companies are getting very aggressive about fire risk assessments. They're looking heavily at vegetation, defensible space, wildfire exposure, and how cities manage mitigation. And those factors affect whether a home is insurable, how expensive the policy is, and sometimes whether a real estate deal can even close. So while brush clearance letters and fire inspections might feel annoying, they can actually help protect the insurability of entire neighborhoods. And right now in California, that's a big deal. So if you get a letter about defensible space, don't panic, but also maybe don't ignore it, because fire season doesn't care about your landscaping aesthetic. Next up were public comments, which covered 2 very different topics: marijuana advertising, which is honestly spoken often. Speakers raised concern about cannabis advertising in Vista, specifically things like billboards and public messaging. They cited research suggesting modern cannabis products are much stronger than they used to be, and argued the city should focus more on youth prevention and education. No action was taken here. This was just public input, but it's worth noting because it may come up again in future policy discussions. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. before, but I probably am not going to mention this again because they do it pretty much every time until something official starts going on with it. Then a couple of people spoke about Vista's new city logo rollout, stating that the public didn't have enough input or awareness and that the designs were unpopular online. If you've been following this saga, then you know the local debate has become a surprisingly spicy topic in Vista politics. No decisions were made either. This was just public comment. But personally, I actually did vote in the poll, but that was before I learned more about the symbolism and context behind the designs. I know, bad witch, not thinking about symbolism. What was I thinking? At this point, though, I'm kind of in the if it ain't broke, then don't fix it camp. Maybe John Oliver and the folks at Last Week Tonight can come settle the logo debate for us so that we can all move on. They seem to have the time and the budget to fight about this kind of stuff. Anyway, moving on. So next up was a public hearing about updates to recreation and community service fees. The big highlight here was a proposal to bring back something Vista hasn't had since 2011, open gym at Jim Porter Recreation Center. The city wants to launch a pilot program for open gym access. So the proposed structure is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., first come, first serve. Adults are $5, youth under 18 is free. Staff explained that the goal is to test demand, collect feedback, and potentially expand it later. They expect the biggest users are going to be adults, homeschool families, and charter school students. This item was technically about updates to recreation and community service fees overall, including programming at the Wave Water Park. But the main thing residents would actually notice was the return of open gym hours at Jim Porter Recreation Center. So if you're someone who likes pickup basketball or indoor recreation, this might be something to keep an eye on. This isn't the first time it's been mentioned in a hearing either, so it's definitely in the works, and I probably won't mention it again either unless there's something that we need to know. Next up was a pretty detailed discussion about plastic beverage containers and environmental policy. The council is looking at restrictions on certain single-use plastic bottles as part of a broader sustainability effort. This discussion was specifically about single-use plastic beverage containers on city property and city events, not banning plastic bottles citywide. Quite a few people from the community spoke in support of this, including my friend Sarah. Hi, Sarah. But during the discussion, council members raised concerns about unintended consequences. Like if the rules are too strict, then park concession stands might not be able to sell drinks like Gatorade during youth sports. And in 95-degree Vista summer heat, that would not go over well with parents or kids. There was also a discussion about expanding water refill stations around the city, including possible water fountains with dog bowls, which honestly sounds like something Vista dog owners would probably appreciate. The council did vote on this item, but not on the final policy yet. So instead, they just voted to move forward with drafting the ordinance based on the options discussed, while making sure that staff looks closely at possible unintended consequences. So the final version of the rule will come back to council later for another vote. So in other words, it's the ideas moving forward, but the details are still being worked out. Personally, I get mad if my husband buys a case of water and I don't drink out of a plastic water bottle if I can avoid it, so I am all in for the lessening of plastic in any way, shape, or form. The council also took action on that abandoned building over on Emerald Drive. You know the one. They gave the owner a short window to address it, and if that doesn't happen, then the city can move forward with demolition. So that building's days are finally numbered, and that number is about 60. And the final major item of the night was about Proposition 36. So Prop 36 passed statewide in 2024 with about 70% voter support, so that's huge. It allows courts to offer people charged with certain drug crimes treatment programs instead of prison. The issue discussed at the meeting was that the program currently doesn't have enough funding. Cities and counties are responsible for implementing it, but the state hasn't provided the estimated $250 to $400 million per year needed to run it properly. Vista's council considered a resolution urging the state to provide adequate funding. Several council members spoke about the impact of addiction in the community, and one council member shared a personal story about losing his brother to a painkiller overdose. The broader point was that treatment programs only work if they are actually funded. The vote result was that the council voted unanimously to support the resolution calling for state funding. The resolution will now be shared with other cities in San Diego County to build support. Then the meeting wrapped up with a few updates, and I'll be super brief. So we got a new economic development manager. His name is Aaron Schultz, and he brings over 20 years of experience in economic development. His job's going to focus on supporting Vista's business community and economic growth. And Shelby Coffrin was promoted to Cultural Arts Program Manager. So she gets to oversee the Moonlight Amphitheater, public arts programs, and cultural programming for the city. Then there was this random but very helpful news. So if you're an SDG&E customer, which we all are, super off-peak electricity hours are being extended from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. year-round now, starting April 1st. So running appliances during those hours could help reduce electricity costs. To sum it up, here's what actually moved forward tonight. The city is continuing its defensible space and fire safety enforcement, which means letters are going out to certain homeowners about vegetation clearance. The council voted to move forward, drafting an ordinance around single-use plastic beverage containers, but the final version will come back later. And the council unanimously supported a resolution urging the state to properly fund Proposition 36, which focuses on drug rehabilitation programs instead of prison. Everything else tonight was mostly updates, discussion, or public comment. And that's the tea from March 10th Vista City Council meeting, distilled from 3 hours down to whatever this is. If you live in Vista or you're considering moving here, these meetings actually tell you a lot about where the city is headed. And if this recap saved you 3 hours of your life, say thank you by letting me know in the comments and sharing with someone else who would find this helpful. Local government decisions affect housing, schools, safety, taxes, and everything else. And the more people who pay attention, the better our community becomes. Thank you for watching this episode of Vista City Tea. Stay informed, stay curious, and I'll see you on the next one, but hopefully sooner.